Paul in Philippians chapter 2 must be worked out. In other words, you're saved in an instant, but there's a working out of all that salvation is in our lives. How long does it take? A lifetime. We're in the perfecting process. The same occurs when the Lord touches and heals our minds, our souls, our wills, our emotions. He does. He comes. There is inner healing. I believe in inner healing. That healing occurs when we're willing to receive it, either through ourselves, through our own prayers, or when somebody else lays hands on us and ministers to us. That healing is done. It is complete. As your salvation is complete, that's when you receive Christ as your personal Savior. But then that which has been released to you, you must choose to walk in. In other words, if I'm saved and I still think that I can act like I'm a little lost, I can if I want to. Well, now, preacher, don't go messing. You see, I can be healed by the Spirit of God in my inner man. But if I still want to be just a little hurt, just a little angry, just a little bitter, I can. But it's not God's fault. It's ours. All right. Are we good so far? I'm almost through the introduction. I hadn't got to the meat yet. You see, the longer we choose to wallow in hurt and pain and possible injustice of our situation, the more fertile soil that we supply for delusion, confusion, anger, bitterness, unforgiveness, and seeds of revenge to take root. So you and I have a choice every day to get up and do the right thing or to get up and do the wrong thing. You know, it takes no more energy to think rightly than it does to think wrong. Well, that went over good, Lord. It takes no more energy to rise up and do the right thing than to rise up and do the wrong thing. Well, Lord, there's another one just kind of... It takes no more time to plan to do the right thing than it does to plan to do the wrong thing. However, it takes more faith and determination to do the right thing than the wrong, because it goes against our natural man's instinct. Thinking's not the problem. Again, it's faith to the action that becomes the issue. It all comes down to our choices, our reactions, and our responses. The Lord wants to encourage us to get back up and get on with the right things in the right way, that He might reward your faith and reveal to you His faithfulness. That's what He wants to do. He wants to reward your faith effort. But if you give Him no faith effort, He has nothing to reward. And then we get mad at God. Well, I was sitting here wallowing in my self-pity, my hurt, my pain, my unforgiveness, my bitterness, and God wouldn't do anything for me. Well, boy, it got quiet. I'll be honest with you, if I hadn't been there, done that, and got several T-shirts on it, I couldn't preach that as strong to you as I do. But because very few of you have been where I have been and sat where I have sat in that, I can look at you and tell you, you choose to sit in your own pity party after a season. After a season, you choose to get up, get back on and get on with it, or you choose to let that event, whatever it was, to ruin your thinking for the rest of your life. I choose to let nothing in my past hinder my future. I choose to let nothing that has happened in my past to poison the well that I have that I'm to feed others. It is so. Every leader needs to be listening to me. Every leader in any type of leadership in a church, any pastor needs to be listening to me right now. You cannot afford to let your well be tainted by anger, bitterness, offenses, and hurt. Because if you do, your well will become poisoned, and that which you begin to pour out to your people will be poisoned, and it will inflict them. In your families, you must learn to release things to the Lord so you can go on. Or you will, listen, a tainted well will poison every relationship around it. When you start, this is free, this isn't in the notes. When you begin to let bitterness enter into a relationship, the enemy is sure to continue to poison it. You must deal with it in you, even if the other individuals will not deal with it in them. Last week we talked about David at Ziklag. And that story is found in 1 Samuel chapter 30, and I don't have time to go back and go through the whole thing. But the basis of the story is this, is David and all the warriors were out doing a campaign, and they left their camp unguarded. And while they were gone, I believe it was the Amalekites came in and stole everything David and his men had. They stole their wives, they stole their children, they stole their belongings, they stole all their food reserves, they carried everything off, and when they got back to Ziklag, David and his men saw what had happened, and like anybody would do, any army would carry on, they were brokenhearted, they were hurt, they were angry, they were embittered, and they were trying to find a solution on how to fix this. And it seemed that the greatest majority of the soldiers decided the best thing to do was to stone David. So David, being the man that he was, went into his tent and got God's heart and came back out and encouraged the people. He said, let's quit fighting with one another. Let's quit murmuring and arguing and backbiting about everything that the devil's taken from us. And instead, let's encourage ourselves in the Lord. Let's unite and let's be determined to go and get everything the devil stole and bring it back to us. So guess what they did? They evidently decided that was a better idea than stoning David. So they got behind David and they went and they reclaimed everything that the devil had stolen. Now this account takes us back. I'm talking about getting up, getting back on, and getting on with it. David chose to get back up, get back on, and get on with it in the right way. Here's the difference between David and Moses. Because Moses was facing much the same type of situation, although David hadn't had to put up with it for 40 years. Moses had. But Moses had to put up with it as well. The people were murmuring, complaining, blaming Moses for everything that was going on when Moses was just trying to follow God, and Moses couldn't control what was happening among the people. Hello? You say, you may think I'm God, or you may think that you want me to be God and handle every situation that comes up in the church. I got news for you. I can't. Point number 2, I refuse to do so. Why? Because I refuse to be God. And if people want to go nutsos after I've done everything I can to help them in the process, then they'll just have to go nuts. They will come back to their senses. Now, Moses' mistake was he got up and he beat the people. He brought railing accusations against them. He brought a curse on them. And because of it, he didn't get to go into the promised land. David, on the other hand, said, hey, troops, quit worrying about stoning me and let's go get what the devil stole. So you see, you can choose to get back up and do right, or you can choose to get back up and do wrong. Moses was one of the greatest leaders in the Old Testament. He was called a friend of God. God liked Moses. But when Moses struck the rock, when he struck the body, when he brought judgment against those whom he was whom he was called to lead, God said, you'll not take this group into the promised land. David, on the other hand, wasn't just a friend of God. God called David a man after his own heart. Why? Because David's heart was always to get up, get back on, and get on with what God has for us, no matter what happened in his life. And there was a people who recognized the heart and decided that they would get back up, get back on, and get on with it with David. And they united a nation and set it up for the golden age in which Solomon would come and rule. I believe we're living in a day today because I believe we're living in the last days. I believe we're living in a day where there are Davidic ministries that are being raised up all over the world. They're having to get back up, they're having to get back on, and they're having to get on with it because they're having to prepare the way of the Lord. Because you see, our golden age doesn't come until Jesus sets. Our golden age doesn't return until the Son of David himself, Jesus, sets foot back on earth and we go into a millennial reign. But you and I have to be willing to get back up, get back on, and get on with what God has for us. Because if the enemy finds that he can come and knock you out and get you turning on one another, get you turning on other church people in the church, get you turning on other people in your family, get you turning on other people in the workplace. I'm preaching better, and you're sitting there and you're going, I'm giving you gold right now. I'm giving you something you can walk out of here and change your life today with. It doesn't take any more energy to think rightly than it does to think wrongly. It doesn't take any more energy to make a choice to do right than it does to make a choice to do wrong. Are we good? Are we good? All right. Let me get what I got. What's next here? I can't see what I got next yet. When we focus in on getting on with it, what we focus on in getting on with it is where we will go. We all have a choice to rebel, murmur, complain, and blame, or we may choose to encourage ourselves in the Lord and not miss a beat. When we do this, we surprise the enemy and win an even greater victory. I mean, that really is it. This is actually spiritual warfare 101. Yes, you're going to be in a fight. Yes, you will get wounded. I will not lie to you like other TV preachers will tell you that if you'll do everything right, everything will be perfect and you'll never have to go through anything. Now sow a seed of $100 and God will seal that. I'm not going to get invited to a lot of conferences because of the way I preach. I'm just going to be honest with you. But I refuse to shut up. I will not shut up. But if we choose to get in the fight, it's a whole lot easier if you're going in a fight and